Lieutenant Zara Voss pressed her back against the twisted metal hull of her crashed reconnaissance pod, listening to the eerie silence that had settled over the battlefield. 20 minutes ago, this sector had been alive with the screech of plasma, cannons, and the thunder of exploding warships. Now, only the distant crackle of cooling metal and the soft hiss of escaping atmosphere broke the stillness. Her helmet's display flickered with damage reports she didn't need to read. The entire human fleet had been scattered or destroyed by the Catherian Empire's surprise attack. Her pod had been caught in the crossfire, its navigation systems fried by an electromagnetic pulse before crash landing on this desolate moon. Zara adjusted her rifle's power cell and checked her oxygen reserves. 6 hours of breathable air remained enough. Time to establish a distress beacon and pray someone friendly would find her before the Catherians did. She'd heard the stories about what happened to human prisoners. None of them ended well. A metallic scraping sound made her freeze. Something large was moving beyond the wreckage of a Catherian fighter that had crashed 50 meters away. Raised her weapon, finger hovering over the trigger as a figure emerged from behind the smoking debris. Her breath caught. It was a Catherian warrior, but unlike any she'd seen in the intelligence briefings, where most of their kind stood 7 feet tall with gray skin and angular features. This one was easily 8 feet, his physique more refined than brutish. His armor was different to sleeker, with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Royal Guard, maybe? Or some kind of elite unit. The alien stumbled. One hand pressed against his side where bright blue fluid seeped between his fingers. His other arm hung uselessly, the armor there cracked and sparking. Despite his injuries, his movements retained a predatory grace that made Zara's military instincts scream warnings. He hadn't seen her yet. She could take the shot. One clean hit to the head would end it quickly. Command would probably give her a medal for eliminating what was obviously a high-value target. Instead, she found herself studying his face. Even injured and exhausted, there was something striking about his features. Sharp cheekbones, skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and eyes the color of molten gold that held an intelligence she hadn't expected. This wasn't the mindless war machine propaganda had painted the Catherians to be. The warrior took another step and collapsed, his massive frame hitting the ground with a dull thud. Zara remained motionless, watching for any sign of deception. Minutes passed. Aliens. Breathing grew more labored, and the blue fluid their blood, she realized, began pooling beneath him. She should walk away. Leave him to die and focus on her own survival. That's what any reasonable soldier would do. But Zara had always been accused of thinking too much, feeling too deeply. Her engineering background had taught her to see problems as puzzles to be solved, not obstacles to be destroyed. And right now, watching this wounded being slowly bleed out, she saw a different kind of puzzle entirely, against every regulation she'd ever learned. Zara shouldered her rifle and approached the fallen Catherian. She knelt beside him, studying the damaged armor with professional interest. The technology was far beyond anything humanity possessed, but the principles of engineering were universal. His eyes fluttered open, those golden irises focusing on her face with obvious confusion. "Easy there, big guy," she murmured, surprising herself with the gentleness in her voice. "Let's see what we can do about those holes in your fancy suit." Catherine Dax had expected many things when he opened his eyes. Death, capture, interrogation. He had not expected to find a human female carefully examining his battle armor with the focused attention of a scholar studying ancient texts. The pain in his side flared as consciousness fully returned, reminding him of the plasma bolt that had torn through his protective systems during the ambush. His Royal Guard training kicked in, muscles tensing for combat despite his injuries. But the human's steady voice cut through his reflexive aggression. "I said, easy. You've got a punctured cooling line and what looks like a severed neural link in your left gauntlet. Move too fast, and you'll either cook yourself or lose all motor function in that arm." Catherine stared at her, processing words he never thought he'd hear from a human mouth. They knew nothing of Catherian technology, their own crude weapons barely qualified as functional compared to his people's mastery. Yet this small, dark-haired female spoke with the confidence of someone who understood exactly what she was looking at. "You should run," he managed, his voice a hoarse rasp. Each word felt like swallowing glass. "When my people find us, they will not distinguish between prisoner and accomplice." The human he could see her rank insignia indicated lieutenant looked up from his damaged chest plate, with eyes the color of Earth's sky. "Your people might want to hurry then. These wounds need attention, and I'm guessing you've got maybe an hour before blood loss drops you into shock." "Why?" The question escaped before he could stop it. "Why? What? Why? Help me. Your kind fears. Us. Hates us." He tried to sit up, grimacing as pain shot through his torso. "We have been at war for 3 cycles." Lieutenant Vossi could read her name tape now sit back on her heels, considering his question. Maybe that's exactly why. 3 years of killing each other. And for what? I've seen the casualty reports from both sides. We're bleeding ourselves dry over resources and territory that could probably support both our species. If we weren't so busy blowing each other up. Catherine had heard such idealistic nonsense from peace advocates in the Catharian Senate, but coming from an enemy soldier, it struck him differently. This human had crashed behind enemy lines, was stranded and outnumbered, yet instead of securing her own survival, she was risking everything for a philosophical principle. "You are either very brave or very foolish," he observed. "Probably both." She returned her attention to his armor, her hands moving with surprising delicacy around the damaged neural interfaces. "Though my commanding officer would definitely vote for foolish. I'm supposed to be establishing a distress beacon, not playing. Manek to enemy royalty. How did you... The armor gave it away. Nobody decorates battle gear with that much detail unless they're trying to impress someone important. Plus, you carry yourself like you've never been told no in your life." Her lips quirked in what might have been amusement. Royal bearing is pretty universal, even across species. Despite everything, the pain, the impossible situation. The fact that he was conversing with his sworn enemy, Catherine found himself almost smiling. Prince Catherine Dax, 3rd of the Stellar Throne, Lieutenant Zara Voss, 47th Engineering Corps. And before you ask, yes, I know exactly how much trouble I'm in for this. She gestured at the makeshift medical supplies she'd laid out beside them. "Now, Your Highness, I need you to trust me with something that's probably going to hurt like hell." Trust. The word hung between them like a bridge neither should cross. Kethron studied her face, searching for deception or hidden agenda. All he found was determination mixed with genuine concern emotions, his own people rarely displayed, even to family. "What do you need me to do?" The makeshift field hospital Zara had established between 2 chunks of wreckage felt impossibly intimate, given the circumstances. She'd managed to stabilize Catherine's bleeding using a combination of human medical supplies and improvised techniques that would have made her instructors proud or horrified. "The good news is, your armor's self-repair systems are still partially functional," she said, her hands working inside the chest panel she'd carefully removed. "The bad news is, they're trying to seal around fragments of your own metal plating. It's like trying to heal a wound with the bullet still inside." Catherine watched her work with growing fascination. Her fingers moved through the complex network of biomechanical interfaces with an intuitive understanding that defied explanation. "Where did you learn Catharian engineering principles?" "I didn't. But energy flows, neural pathways, self-repairing materials, the physics are the same whether you're human or Catharian." She paused, holding up a damaged component that pulsed with faint blue light. "Though I'll admit, your tech is about 50 years ahead of ours. This neural processor alone could revolutionize our entire computer industry. And yet you repair it instead of taking it apart to study." Zara glanced at him, something unreadable in her expression. "Would you prefer I left you to die so I could play with your toys?" The question carried an edge that made Catherine realize his comment had been taken as an accusation. In his culture, such pragmatism would be expected, even praised, but humans, it seemed, operated by different rules. "I meant no offense. Among my people, tactical advantage always takes precedence over individual concerns." He winced as she reconnected a particularly sensitive neural link. "Your priorities are unfamiliar to me. Well, get used to it. We're going to be stuck together for a while. She sealed the chest panel and moved to examine his damaged gauntlet. This one's trickier. The whole servo system is fried, and I think there's feedback damage in the neural interface. Kethron flexed his left hand experimentally. The fingers moved sluggishly, responding several seconds after he gave the mental command. Without full motor control, I cannot effectively wield a weapon. Good thing we're not planning to shoot anyone. Zara began carefully removing the outer shell of the gauntlet. Unless you're having second thoughts about this temporary truce? The question hit closer to home than she probably intended. Kethron had been trained from birth to see humans as inferior beings, clever, but ultimately primitive, lacking the discipline and honor that defined Catherian society. Yet this small female had shown him more genuine concern in the past hour than most of his own kind had displayed in years. "You could have killed me while I was unconscious," he said quietly. "It would have been the logical choice." "Maybe, but I've seen enough killing lately." Her voice carried a weariness that seemed too heavy for someone so young. "Besides, dead princes don't answer questions. And I'm starting to think there are things about this war that neither of our species fully understands." As she worked on the delicate neural pathways, her touch surprisingly gentle for someone handling alien technology. Kethron found himself studying her face. There was intelligence there, yes, but also a stubborn compassion that his people would consider a weakness. Yet that same compassion had saved his life. "The feedback damage extends deeper than I thought," she murmured, frowning at the exposed circuitry. "I'm going to need to access the primary neural interface directly." "That means ... double quotes," she hesitated, color rising in her cheeks. "What?" "The interface connects directly to your nervous system through contact points along your forearm and shoulder. To repair it properly, I'll need to remove more of the armor plating." Kethron understood her discomfort. In Catherian culture, such intimate contact with battle armor was reserved for bonded mates or the most trusted of servants. For an enemy, to touch the neural interfaces that connected so directly to his body and mind. "Do what you must," he said, surprised by his own certainty. "I trust you." The words hung in the air between them, carrying weight that neither had expected. Zara's hands stilled for a moment, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made something shift in his chest. "It might hurt," she warned softly. "I know." But as her fingers found the neural contact points along his arm, sending unexpected warmth through his entire body, Kethron realized the pain he should fear had nothing to do with damaged circuitry. Captain Jorek Stern had been tracking his missing lieutenant for 6 hours when he found the crash site. The scattered debris of Zar's reconnaissance pod painted a clear picture: emergency landing, minimal chance of survival, no sign of the pilot. Standard protocol demanded a thorough search and recovery operation, but with Catherian patrol ships prowling the sector, he had maybe 20 minutes before prudence forced a retreat. That's when he spotted the second crash site. The wreckage of a Catherian fighter lay crumpled against a rocky outcropping, its hull still warm from re-entry. More concerning were the traces of human emergency supplies scattered around a makeshift shelter between the two crash sites. Medical waste, empty ration packs, and most damning of all, pieces of Catherian armor carefully arranged like components. Awaiting reassembly, Jorek activated. His suits enhanced optics and followed the trail of disturbed dust leading away from the shelter. What he found 50 meters later nearly made him forget 15 years of military discipline. Lieutenant Zara Voss sat cross-legged beside a massive Catherian warrior, her hands working inside his open chest armor with the focused attention of a surgeon. The alien's golden eyes tracked her movements with an expression that looked disturbingly like trust. Neither of them had noticed Jorek's approach. They were too absorbed in their impossible collaboration. "Lieutenant." His voice cut through the thin atmosphere like a blade. Zara's head snapped up, her face cycling through relief, guilt, and defiance in the span of seconds. "Captain Stern, I can explain, can you?" Gorek kept his rifle trained on the Catherian, who had gone perfectly still. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're providing aid and comfort to an enemy combatant. That's treason, Voss." Catherian, clearly high-ranking based on his armor's elaborate designs, lowly raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. "Captain, your subordinate has committed no crime. I am her prisoner." "Funny kind of prisoner," Jorik observed. "One who sits unrestrained while his captor repairs his equipment." "Jorik, please." Zara stood slowly, placing herself between the two men. "His name is Prince Kethron Dax. He's been feeding me intelligence about Catherian military movements. This could be the breakthrough we've been hoping for." It was a smooth lie, delivered with the kind of conviction that came from desperation. Jorik might have believed it if he hadn't seen the way she looked at the alien prince, not like an interrogator managing a source, but like someone who'd found something precious in the midst of destruction. "Intelligence, you say?" Jorik accessed his command files, pulling up classified reports from the past 72 hours. "Then perhaps His Highness can explain why. Catherian forces have been withdrawing from 3 contested systems over the past 2 days. Our analysts think they're regrouping for a major offensive." Catherine's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "The withdrawals are not tactical repositioning. My father received word of a new threat, something approaching from beyond the outer rim. The hegemony fears this enemy more than they fear humanity." "What kind of threat?" The question escaped Jorik before his training could stop it. "Unknown vessels, technology unlike anything in our databases. They destroyed a Catherian research station without warning, without communication. No survivors, no wreckage large enough to analyze." Catherine's golden eyes met Jorik's directly. "My father sent me to negotiate a temporary ceasefire with your fleet commanders. The ambush that brought us here was launched by extremist factions, opposed to any cooperation with humans." The intelligence officer and Jorik recognized the implications immediately. If the Catherians were scared enough to consider an alliance with humanity, this new threat was serious enough to reshape the entire war. "Even if that's true," he said carefully, "it doesn't explain why my lieutenant is performing maintenance on your equipment instead of securing you for transport." "Because his armor's life support was failing," Zara interjected. "I couldn't exactly interrogate a corpse." Another lie. But this one carried enough truth to be plausible. Jorik studied them both, weighing duty against opportunity. By the book. He should arrest Zara and execute the Catherian prince as an enemy combatant. But if Kethron's story was accurate, bringing him back alive could provide intelligence that might save both their species. "You have 30 seconds to convince me this isn't an elaborate deception," he told Caprand. The prince nodded toward a sealed compartment on his belt. "In there, you will find encrypted data cores containing everything our scouts have learned about the approaching threat. Ships that phase in and out of normal space, weapons that disrupt matter at the quantum level. They are 3 days out from the contested border systems." Jorik's blood went cold. 3 days meant both human and Catherian colonies were at risk. "Captain," Zara said quietly, "we need to get him back to the fleet. Whatever's coming, we're going to need all the help we can get." The command briefing aboard the UES Defiance had lasted 6 hours and accomplished nothing except raising everyone's blood pressure. Admiral Chen's staff had dissected Catherine's intelligence from every possible angle, but the conclusion remained unchanged. Humanity faced an enemy that outclassed both their technology and the Catherians by an order of magnitude. "The Prince's data shows 17 colonies already lost," reported Commander Hayes, the fleet's intelligence chief. "No survivors, no communications, no wreckage patterns consistent with conventional weapons." Ara sat in the back of the briefing room, officially present as Catherine's handler, but feeling increasingly like a fraud. The past 3 days aboard the human flagship had transformed her. Understanding of everything she thought she knew about the war, about the enemy, about herself. Catherine had been assigned quarters under heavy guard, but the restrictions felt more ceremonial than necessary. He'd made no attempt to escape or sabotage ship systems. Instead, he'd spent his time working with human scientists, sharing technological insights that were already revolutionizing their defensive capabilities. More troubling for Zara's peace of mind, at least, were the quiet conversations they'd shared during his medical evaluations. Discussions about art, philosophy, the burden of expectations placed on leaders' children. She'd discovered that beneath the alien prince's imposing exterior lay someone who questioned his society's rigid certainties just as much as she questioned her own. The approaching force will reach the Kepler system in 18 hours, Admiral Chen announced. Both our colonies and the Catherian outposts, there will be defenseless against the kind of firepower we've seen in the data cores. Then we evacuate, suggested Captain Stern. Negative. Kepler's industrial infrastructure is too valuable to abandon. We hold the line. The Admiral's gaze swept the room. Prince Catherine has offered to contact his father directly. If we can coordinate our defensive fleets, ... double quotes, a joint operation. Hayes sounded incredulous. Admiral, these people have been trying to kill us for 3 years. The moment this crisis passes, they'll turn those same weapons on us. Perhaps Chun's expression remained neutral. But extinction tends to clarify priorities, as the briefing. Dissolved into tactical discussions, Zara slipped out and made her way to the detention level. The guards nodded respectfully. Her status as Catherine's primary contact had earned her unexpected authority. She found him standing before the small viewport in his quarters, watching stars wheel past as the ship maneuvered toward the Kepler system. His repaired armor hung in the corner, its surface gleaming with subtle modifications her engineering team had made to enhance compatibility with human weapon systems. Having second thoughts? She asked. Many? He didn't turn from the viewport. My people will call me traitor for fighting alongside humans. Yours will never fully trust an alliance born of desperation. And when this threat passes, we'll probably go back to shooting each other. Zara moved to stand beside him, their reflections overlapping in the transparent aluminum. Maybe we'll remember that there are worse things in the universe than our differences. Catherine finally looked at her, his golden eyes reflecting emotions she was only beginning to understand. You've repaired more than my armor, Lieutenant? You showed me that honor and compassion are not uniquely Catherian traits. Just like you showed me that the enemy isn't always what propaganda makes them out to be. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars and trying not to think about the battle ahead. Finally, Catherine spoke again. When my father's fleet arrives, I will be expected to transfer to the flagship and resume my proper role. A Catherian prince cannot remain aboard a human vessel indefinitely. The words hit Zara harder than expected. Over the past days, she'd grown accustomed to their conversations. Too, the way he listened with genuine interest to her theories about cross-species engineering. To the rare moments when his formal facade slipped and she glimpsed the person beneath the title. I know, she said simply. But perhaps, after this crisis, ... He hesitated, struggling with concepts his language had no words for. Perhaps there could be exchanges, cultural attaches. Joint research initiatives? Perhaps, an alert chimed. Through the ship's communication system, it's all hands to battle stations. Unknown contacts approaching Kepler system. This is not a drill. Catherine straightened, his royal bearing reasserting itself. It begins. Together, Zara said, the word, carrying more weight than either of them wanted to acknowledge. As they walked toward the command decuman engineer and alien prince. Former enemies now bound by something stronger than politics or protocol, the universe held its breath. Whatever emerged from the approaching battle would reshape the galaxy forever. But for now, in this moment between heartbeats, they had each other. And sometimes that was enough to face the darkness. Our